Here we are again at Datchet train station and we're going to Windsor.
I'm making a TikTok, so don't bother me.
And we're going on the boats today. I don't know.
It's I'm trying to text.
Hello. Here we are on our little boat ride. It'll be going soon. Nice little boat trip, just me and Sophie. Hope you can hear us.
Wait, where did they go? At the top?
Yeah.
Cool.
Windsor Majesty. Just before we set sail, we do have a bar on board, but my crew is under 18, therefore we're not allowed to serve alcohol. But once we set sail, he will come round and see if you want any non-alcoholic or teas, coffees, things like that. Thanks very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of French Brothers, welcome aboard the Windsor Majesty. Your attention is required for the following brief safety announcement in accordance with Maritime and Coast Guard Agency regulations. The main exit saloon, the windows or open sides in the front cabin, and the open sides around the upper deck. Buoyant apparatus consisting of life rings and life rafts is stored around the outside of the upper deck and above the front cabin. In the event of any emergency, please remain calm and await further instructions from the skipper and crew. If you are accompanying small children, please keep them with you at all times, and if you have bird food purchased either from our gift shop or on board, please throw it well clear of the vessel. Ensure also that this is the only thing which you throw overboard. All rubbish must be placed in the bins provided or taken ashore. Finally, as with all our public sailings, there is to be no smoking on any part of this boat. We thank you for your cooperation, and if you have any questions or if there is anything we can do to make your trip more enjoyable, please do not hesitate to ask a member of staff. We have a well-stocked bar on board, situated on the lower deck towards the rear of the boat. This will be open throughout this trip, selling a range of wines, beers, spirits, as well as soft drinks, tea, coffee, hot chocolate and light snacks. We also have special promotions from time to time, so please ask about these. For instance, 2 or more of you may wish to share a jug of Pimm's, the perfect traditional drink to enjoy on the river. There's no need to leave your seat, as a member of staff will be making their way around the boat shortly, taking orders for drinks which can then be brought to you. We're now leaving the centre of Windsor to our left, while on the opposite bank to our right is Eton, with some of the Eton College boathouses lining the waterfront. Rowing is a popular activity at Eton, the boys choosing either that or cricket as their summer sport. Those who choose cricket are known as dry bobs, whilst the rowers are called wet bobs. We are now proceeding upstream on the River Thames, which takes us in a roughly westerly direction. This would lead eventually to Oxford and beyond, though to reach Oxford would take approximately 2 days by river from here. This is mainly due to the 23 locks between here and the middle of Oxford, each one taking up to half an hour to negotiate on a busy day. There is a speed limit on the Upper Thames of a little under 5 miles an hour, added to which the Thames takes a very meandering course, so all in all it's not the place to be if you're in too much of a hurry. To our left is Jacob's Island, formerly called Corporation Island. It was renamed after a well-known local councillor and boat builder called Arthur Jacobs. It was here that some of the largest wooden boats, almost twice the length of this one, were built in the now dismantled and long-forgotten boathouses and slipways of the Jacobs Yard. As we proceed past Brockers Meadows to our right, some more of the Eton College buildings become visible, as do the spires of Eton College Chapel, which is built in an almost identical style to St George's Chapel in Windsor Castle. It's known as the Perpendicular Gothic style of architecture. Eton College was founded in 1440 by King Henry VI, originally naming it the King's College of Our Lady of Eton beside Windsor. Incidentally, the college owns nearly all of the land on our right-hand side from here to well beyond our turning point. They in fact own portions of land in many parts of the country, this being largely due to an outdated practice whereby parents of Eton boys used to donate land to the college in order to offset fees.
It's a lot smaller, the Brockers.
Well, that's the buses.
There's Funfair. Used to be a lot bigger than that. It's a lot smaller this time.
Through the trees to our left shortly, we will see a full-size replica of a Hawker Hurricane fighter plane. This is a memorial to its designer, Sir Sidney Cam, whose former home stands a few hundred yards beyond. This plane bears the markings of one flown in the Battle of Britain by Squadron Leader John Grandy, who was Constable and Governor of Windsor Castle from 1978 to 1988. Sir Sidney Cam was a pupil of Royal Free School in Windsor. During this time he designed and built model aeroplanes which he then sold to the boys of Eton College. Whilst the Hurricane was his best known aircraft, Cam also designed a Hunter in 1951, which in 1953 went on to break the world speed record of 727 miles per hour. Cam's final design was the Harrier, which remained in RAF service for 50 years until 2010, and it is still flown by the US Marines as the AV-8B. Ahead of us is the Windsor Railway Bridge, being one of several across the Thames designed by Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the famous Victorian engineer. The bridge was completed in 1849 for Queen Victoria, and it brought the Great Western Railway network right up to the front of Windsor Castle. The design of this bridge was unique in its day, as were many of Brunel's designs. This one because the 187-foot central span is not secured to the sides in any way. It simply rests there under its own weight on 6 bearings, allowing for expansion and contraction of the ironworks during temperature changes. This type of span is known as a bowstring arch, and the brick viaduct was constructed between 1861 and 1865, replacing an original wooden trestle structure. The arches were incorporated into the design to prevent floodwater from being trapped on the upstream side in the event of the Thames bursting its banks. It's also believed to be Brunel's oldest surviving structure still in continuous use, and was granted Grade 2 listed status in 1975. In 1883, Windsor Central Station became part of the London Underground network, when the District Line was extended from Ealing Broadway to Windsor, using the tracks of the Great Western Railway. However, this was short-lived, as the service was withdrawn in 1885. The land to our left forms part of Bath's Island, so called because in the days before Windsor had a purpose-built swimming pool, the channel behind the island was closed to boats during the summer months, providing the people of Windsor with a safe swimming area. In 1870, Queen Victoria disapproved of the sight of bathers from the Royal Train and had them moved to the downstream end of the island. Then in 1904 the area by the railway was used again, but this time with men on the downstream side of the bridge in the eastern baths and ladies upstream in the western baths. To our left is the Windsor Leisure Centre, being the current incarnation of Windsor's swimming facility. It replaces an earlier outdoor pool. The centre stands on the site of the once famous Ricky Tick Club of the 1960s. The Ricky Tick was a well-known live music venue in its day. It started out at the Star and Garter at Windsor Town Centre in 1962, before moving to a semi-derelict mansion on this site called Clewer Meads in 1964. Many of today's major acts such as The Who, The Rolling Stones, Stevie Wonder and Pink Floyd made some of their early appearances here, and it was at the Ricky Tick that the previously unheard of Jimi Hendrix made his UK debut. The mural coming up on our right, stretching across the base of the bridge, was commissioned in 2012 as part of the London Olympic Games, as it is on what was known as the Windsor Games Walk, leading to Tawny Lake about 2 miles upstream. The venue hosted the rowing and canoe sprint events. Painted by London artist Cosmo Sarson, the mural depicts 16 faces representative of the young people of today.
I think so, I'm not sure.
It looks like one, and like I think they cover all the windows.
passing White Lilies Island to our left. The name is misleading as it is in fact a plot of land forming the downstream end of a much larger island. This plot was sold for development by the owners of Clewer Boatyard in 1957 for £7,000. The land and 5 houses on it are now estimated to be worth well in excess of 20 million. Past residents include the Australian singer and actress Natalie Imbruglia, who in fact called one of her albums White Lilies Island. To our right, we're about to round Clewer Point, which forms one of the sharpest bends on this part of the river. For this reason, there is a heavy iron post set into the ground near the end of the point. It's called a strapping or turning post and goes back to the days of horse-drawn barges. As the barges approach the point, the tow rope would be taken off the horse and a few turns made around the post. This would allow the barge to swing safely around the point under its own momentum in a pendulum-like motion. Had they not done this, the barge would have continued on in a straight line towards the opposite bank, probably pulling the unfortunate horse in behind it. Through the trees to our left is Windsor Racecourse. We will see more of this at various stages right up to our turnaround point. We're currently passing the area behind the grandstands. Racing began here at Windsor in 1866 and continues on to this day with regular Monday evening meetings and some weekends throughout the summer. We're now rounding a bend called Upper Hope, and just beyond these trees to our left is the parade ring of Windsor Racecourse. This course is unique in that it stands entirely on an island. It's called Rays Island and it's in fact the largest on the Upper Thames, being about a mile long. The only Thames island longer than this one is Canvey Island on the Thames estuary beyond London. It's also one of only 2 figure-of-8 courses in the country, the track having been laid out in this way in order to fit the required length of track into the limited space offered by the island.
Working too. Yeah.
Coming up on our right is a spot known locally as Athens, marked by a section of raised concrete riverbank with a bench on top. It was here that the boys of Eton College used to have their swimming lessons the days before they had their own pool. Just below the bench is a stone block bearing the instruction, get at once into the water or behind screens whenever a boat comes in sight with ladies aboard. As in those days the boys used to swim naked in the style of the ancient Greeks, hence the name Athens.
What's that
Looking
look
to our
for?
left now, through the trees, we can see across the track at Windsor Racecourse, and in the distance the tops of some boats may be visible. This is Rays Island. As we travel, the most common is the mallard duck, the male of which has the unfortunate combination of a green head and orange feet. Less common are tufted ducks with their bright yellow eyes showing clearly against a black head, which has a small tail at the back. In some parts there are families of the more ornate mandarin duck, and there have been sightings of other species such as merganser and pochard. Herons are often seen standing motionless at the water's edge, waiting to pounce on passing fish. They are probably none too impressed with the increasing number of cormorants now moving in. This large black diving bird is a saltwater species, but in recent years they have started to colonise the Thames, no doubt having realised the rich pickings to be had from the abundant fish life. The crested grebe also dives for fish, and is so well adapted for this role, with its legs right at the back of its streamline, that it is completely unable to stand on land. Egret is related to the heron, but is smaller and completely white. Although very rare, it has been sighted on this river. The kingfisher is another predatory bird, and although fairly common, it is hard to spot. Being quite small and fast moving, it is often seen as a flash of electric blue darting through the trees or across the water. There is the whale-head face, and the coot, which is black with a white face and beak. Coots defend their territory ferociously and will often drive swans away. The Canada goose is so prolific that it is now considered a pest, and it is often seen alongside the less common but more attractive Egyptian goose. Looking to the skies, we sometimes see kestrels hovering over fields. Similar in size and colour is the hobby, which swoops and turns over the water to catch insects. The red kite, with its distinctive forked tail and 5.5-foot wingspan, is now common all along the Thames Valley, having been reintroduced following the eradication of the British Isles. As well as the bird species, there is the otter, which, though non-existent on the Thames a few years ago, is now well established on some stretches, thanks once again to a programme of reintroduction. More common is the mink, which, although not a native species, has done very well on the Thames. Originally bred in captivity for their fur, some have found their way into the wild, having a serious effect on native fauna due to their hunting ability, taking both birds and their eggs. Due to the significance and uniqueness of bird life on the Upper Thames, French Brothers now operate a dedicated bird and wildlife watching cruise in the Windsor area. Details of this are in our timetable website, and the places are strictly limited, booking is essential. Ahead of us now is Bovrey Lock, our turnaround point. The lock weir are built around the island ahead of us, and the set of great gates to the right is the entrance to the lock chamber, which allows boats to bypass the weir, making the change in level from one side to the other. Boats continuing upstream from here will enter the lock chamber, the gates will close behind them, and water from the upstream side will flow into the chamber through sluice gates below water level. This flooding of the lock will raise the boats until the water level in the chamber is equal to the level on the upstream side, at which point the upstream gates can open, allowing boats to continue their journey. The reverse process then allows passage for boats travelling downstream, and the flooding and draining of the lock chamber is simply achieved using the force of gravity. There are no pumps involved. Between the lock and the island, a set of rollers can be seen. These allow users of small boats and skiffs to manually negotiate their passage. The source of the Thames is called Thames Head and is close to Cirencester in the Cotswold Hills in Gloucestershire. It flows downhill following the gradient of the land, and for the first 140 miles it passes through 45 of these lock and weir systems, spaced along this section which is known as the Upper Thames. The Upper Thames drops in elevation by about 300 feet, and these lock and weir systems allow the drop to occur as a series of controlled steps of a few feet each time, and there is no tidal effect on the Upper Thames. Boveney is the 36th lock from the source, and there are another 9 downstream of here, the last of these being at Teddington, west of London. Beyond Teddington, the remaining 75 miles of the Thames becomes tidal as it flows through London and on into the North Sea. This gives a total length of 215 miles. The weir ahead of us is a bit like a dam spanning the main channel, and it is this which does the main job of controlling the flow and subsequently the level. The lockkeeper does this by raising or lowering the individual gates, usually in response to recent rainfall. Allowing a faster flow during wet weather prevents a build-up in level which could lead to flooding, while in dry weather the weir gates are closed in, holding the water back but maintaining a safe depth for boats to navigate. Indeed, the lockkeepers maintain a chain of communication along the river, keeping the Upper Thames at a more or less constant level throughout the year. Towards the right-hand end of the weir is the Salmon Ladder, this being a narrow channel divided lengthways by a series of baffles which slow the water down and cause slight backflow, assisting the migrating salmon in their arduous journey to the source of the river. Salmon were successfully reintroduced to the Thames in 1982 after a long absence, and they have become firmly re-established since then. This is mainly due to the cleanliness of the water these days, the Thames in fact being now officially recognised as one of the world's cleanest metropolitan rivers, that is to say one which flows through major towns and cities. This was not always the case though, and in the 1800s the river was so badly polluted that it was declared dead in the London area, in that no fish or bird life could survive in or around the water. The smell of the river was unbearable to those who lived or worked near it. Diseases such as typhoid and cholera were rife, and this period was known as the Great Stink. For Londoners, things improved greatly in the 1850s with the building of Joseph Bazalgette's enclosed sewage system, and elsewhere along the river many improvements have been made, and the process continues to this day. The colour of the water is deceptive. Despite looking dirty, the brownish-green tint is caused by naturally occurring sediment and microorganisms. Having turned around, we now embark on the downstream leg of our journey, which will take us to London and then on to the North Sea, and for the same reasons as mentioned before, the journey from here to central London would take in the region of 12 hours. However, we are not limited to the River Thames. In fact, much of England is linked by canals and rivers. The first canals were built by the Romans for the purposes of irrigation, as well as linking navigable rivers. But it was the Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th centuries which saw the most significant development due to the need to transport goods around the country, as at this time roads were fairly undeveloped.